got the opportunity today to reconnect with a longtime acquaintance of mine, well, relatively longtime acquaintance of mine, John Felder. John is the president of Cayman Automotive in Grand Cayman, the first company to actually import and service and sell electric vehicles in the Caribbean. And he just had a remarkable breakthrough just last month, and we want to talk about that. John, welcome to EV World.
All right. Good morning.
Good to talk to you. First of all, let's just before we talk about Cuba, let's bring everybody kind of up to speed. Now, I talked to you. It's been a little over a year and a half ago. About your activities in Grand Cayman. So kind of bring us what sort of transpired since then for you.
Okay, well, obviously we've been trying to continue the mission, which is to get all the network of charge stations constructed on the island. We now have 8, and we're in the process of completing another 5 in the next 6 months, which will give us 13 locations.
All right.
So that 13 will more than cover the complete island.
Right.
That obviously that is the key to selling electric vehicle, is having the proper infrastructure to service the vehicles.
Right. Are these? I assume these are what we would call level 2 chargers.
That is correct. Level 2 fast chargers, and eventually it is my desire to have the first level 3 chargers, because we now are beginning to get people with fleets of vehicles, and they have requested a faster charging system.
Right. So how many EVs do you have there, and what kind are they?
Okay, the majority of the vehicles right now, as probably expected, is the Nissan Leaf.
Right.
We also have just received, as you saw, I sent you photos. We have the very first NV200E, and we've been waiting for that vehicle for the last 3 years. So we're very excited, because there's a lot of fleets and government that want to get this vehicle to put it into service. So we have one, and this first one in the Caribbean, I can go ahead and tell you, is going to the Cayman Islands government.
Okay, excellent. And they're going to use that for, I assume, various deliveries services on the island then.
That is correct.
Right.
And they already have a charge station installed, so they'll be able to charge. And once they do their analysis, my guess is that they're going to change over to a green fleet pretty quickly once they realize the savings, not in the environment, but monetary savings.
Right.
On the use of electric versus petrol.
I would assume the gasoline that all has to be imported. You don't have any refineries or any offshore oil. That's all got to come from, I'm guessing, probably the Valero refinery on Aruba, or somewhere else, Houston or wherever.
Very good point, and that's why the gas prices are high, almost $5 a gallon.
Wow.
So it's expensive.
So the electricity, though, I assume, is probably most of the Caribbean. That's also pretty expensive, but there's enough of a savings for this to make economic sense then.
That is correct. Very good point. But I'm glad to say that the utility company in Grand Cayman, they are trying to get ahead of the curve, and in speaking with some of the management last week, you probably heard of time of use rates.
Right, yep.
Okay, they will be implementing that service hopefully in 2016 in the Cayman Islands, which will do two things. It will enable all electric vehicle owners to charge at night for less.
Right. Yep.
And it will decrease the demand from the power service during the day.
Right.
That's the plan.
Right. Well, now I would assume that would also probably encourage some of the businesses and homeowners there to start taking a more serious look at solar then.
That is correct. That is absolutely correct. Because when you put that component into the mix, then you can almost talk about driving for free.
Right. Yep. Absolutely. Well, yeah, because everybody, when you think of the Caribbean, you think of the sunny Caribbean. There's lots of sunshine down there, but what most people don't realize is almost all of that electricity at the moment is coming from fossil fuels, which have to be imported. And while the price of a barrel of oil now is down $40 or so, something like that, it historically has been a lot higher than that and may go up again. So it would make sense that when you use your air conditioning the most, which is in the afternoon to early evening, that's when you've got some of the best sunshine.
That is correct.
Yeah, great. Okay, so you've got these EVs now. These are being what? Some, of course, in private hands. I know early on some of the stuff you were doing was with Budget Rental.
That's right. Budget was the first rental car company to purchase an electric vehicle, which ended up being a WeGo.
Right.
They are now getting ready to purchase a Nissan Leaf because obviously they have found now that the demand is for a four-door
Right.
vehicle. So obviously the WeGo being a two-seater vehicle did not generate the demand that we both thought.
Okay, very good. All right, well, so you've got that going, but then you've had working here for some time now a really exciting kind of a thing, at least given the political shifts that are starting to take place in the Caribbean with vis-a-vis the American relations with Cuba. And so that's kind of the reason why I wanted to talk to you about it. Let's give us some of the backstory. How did you get approached to import electric vehicles into Cuba?
Well, that's very interesting, and obviously it started with a telephone call to Grand Cayman. And as you know, Grand Cayman being a British territory, the embargo has no effect.
Right.
So when the call came into Cayman Automotive Leasing, which is a Cayman corporation, the Cuban government was very interested in speaking to me because they used Google and at the time did not realize that I was American. They thought I was Caymanian.
Right.
So that's what happened and why I received the call. But it was very interesting when I found out how deep they were going with renewable energy and the plans that they were undertaking at the time. This was just something that completely flew at me because this was the last place on earth that you would expect would be thinking about renewable energy.
Well, yeah, I would, that would have been my reaction, of course. We tend to think that way, but then again, they have some fairly progressive policies there with respect to, they got their cheap oil was cut off to them when their relations with Russia as the Soviet Union broke down and dissolved. So they had to do some real belt tightening. So they've introduced some really interesting stuff with respect to sustainable agriculture. Of course, they've been some leaders in terms of medical training and pioneering some of those areas. So it wouldn't surprise me. They just the question, of course, is that given the state of their economy, that you wouldn't think that you tend to think, well, renewable energy is always more expensive And so why would this country that, just was forgiven, something like 80% of their debt by the Paris group, how could they be in a position to do anything with renewable energy?
Right, and also, as you know, Russia recently relieved them of that debt also.
Right.
So there were two. But as you know, may not know, they even manufacture their own solar panels, which was another surprise.
Oh, interesting. Are these what? Are they thermal solar or photoelectric solar?
Photoelectric solar.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, and so they manufacture their own, and they want to start really getting into this technology more, because one of the things that they want to do, based on my discussions with them, is reduce their dependency on foreign oil,
Right.
which is principally right now Venezuela,
Right.
and clean up the environment for their people.
Right.
So they're acutely aware that their environment is in bad shape.
You're right.
Because most of the cars there, as you know, are very old, and they pollute the air.
This was, yeah, when they got cut off, this was long before we had catalytic converters.
That is correct. That is absolutely correct.
Yeah.
So the downside is that they understand that there's a problem and they want to reverse that. And electric vehicles is one of the routes that they want to take.
Okay. So they approached you, and this happened when? About how long ago?
2 years ago.
2 years ago. So they got a call. They said, "Can we talk? Can you get us some electric vehicles?" What happened next?
Well, obviously it took some time because we first had to find out and learn a lot about the country. I knew nothing about Cuba. So I guess the first year was more exploratory to learn about the country. Obviously, having an infrastructure for electric vehicles for a country of that proportion, you're talking about a massive project, because Cuba is larger than Florida.
Yeah.
All right, so that took some time. So once we had our discussions and found out the master plan, the master action plan, we decided to move forward. When I say we, Cayman Automotive decided, the management, that we would start small in the tourist areas and work out from that, because as you know, Cuba has a lot of beautiful tourist areas that attract a lot of foreigners.
Right. Right. Okay. So you began to work with them, and then you began to sort of narrow down. Now that you said we're going to start limited here, we're going to narrow it down. So what were the vehicles you selected, and why did you select those particular ones?
Okay, well, one of the things, and this is very interesting, one of the vehicles that they wanted specifically was a people mover type bus.
Right.
Okay, and they wanted it to have a solar panel roof. Okay, and obviously that makes a lot of sense, because if you find a people mover van that has a solar panel roof, that can increase your range.
Yeah.
Because it's an abundance of sunlight.
Right.
So I was able to find a vehicle to fit that need. And the second was obviously the Nissan Leaf, which is probably the best-selling electric vehicle in the world. That was the second vehicle. And then the Yacht Club, the Hemingway Yacht Club,
Right.
also needed several their little commercial electric trucks.
Okay.
All right, so that's why I chose the three vehicles that were sent to Cuba.
Okay. Now, you're an American citizen, but you reside, I gather, most of the year down, or a good part of the year, you're down in Grand Cayman. Did you run into any kind of opposition or red tape that would say, oh, no, 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 this is violating the embargo and you can't do this?
Well, obviously, there's always concern when there's an embargo in place. But after I spoke to my attorneys and, and got clearance, there was no issues with Cayman Automotive
Okay,
doing business with Cuba.
right,
None whatsoever. And I want to make that distinction.
right,
It's not John Felder doing business with Cuba. It's Cayman Automotive.
right.
I'm only a representative of Cayman Automotive.